Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're out at the range having some fun with the Krag-Jorgensen, and this is the U.S. military's first smokeless powdered rifle. It was chambered, or is chambered, in 30 U.S. or 30 U.S. Army, 30 Army. They called it all sorts of different things, but the majority of people know it as a 30-40 Krag. And it's using the old nomenclature, the caliber that is, that was commonly used in the black powder era, meaning what is your bullet diameter? In this case, it's a 30 caliber bullet, and then 40 is your powder charge, which is 40 grains of smokeless powder. So this was the US's first attempt at adopting a smokeless powder repeating rifle, and this rifle is the rifle of 1898. It has the distinct honor of being one of the shortest lived U.S. military service rifles in history. And by that I mean, as a primary issued service rifle, it only lasted in military service about 9 years or so. And that's not surprising. This rifle went up against a bunch of different rifles at the turn of the century to compete for the U.S. military contract. It went up against the Lee, it went up against Mauser, it went up against a bunch of different rifles, and for whatever reason, this rifle won out. We'll talk about some of the features that the U.S. military initially liked about the rifle, but then what they ultimately found to be the shortcoming and the downfall of the rifle. The Krags are known for their very, very smooth bolt actions. This one is non-molested, meaning it's in its original military form. We have cartouche marks still on the original military stock. We have clearly struck markings all across the rifle, showing its military pedigree. Fortunately, again, this one has not been molested. Most of these you're going to find have been messed with in one way or the other, and what we typically call sporterization. The 30-40 Krag started off early on as being popular, not just a military caliber, but as a civilian caliber. It became very popular in the hunting world back in the day. So other companies chambered the rifles for that 30-40 cartridge. It's interesting to note that today, Remington is about the only company I can find that makes modern 30-40 Krag ammo, which is safe to shoot in these old rifles. And these are hunting tip bullets. These are the core lock bullets. That's all we have out here to shoot this afternoon because, again, I'm not aware of anybody else that's currently importing or loading the 30-40 Krag. So we're going to have some fun with this rifle. We brought out its nemesis, the rifle that ultimately replaced it, the 1903 Springfield, and we'll show you that rifle as well. But we just want to show you this cool old piece of American history and show you some of its unique features that make it kind of stand out from the pack from previous U.S. military rifles. The Krag-Jorgensen is a very unique looking bolt action rifle because its magazine is right over here hanging off the right hand side of the rifle. This big device right here is meant for you to easily open and access the magazine. The magazine pushes the rounds around the side of the receiver and they pop up over here. It's a 5-round magazine. So you'll notice the follower is actually right here tucked up, and as I slowly close this, you'll see that little spring follower come out. See how it comes out? And you'll start to push those rounds around. Now the 30-40 cartridge is a rimmed cartridge, so it does have a rim on it. Typically, you have to be concerned with loading a magazine, making sure that the rims stack up in this manner, so that the round in front of it is not hung up with its rim over the round below it. But with the Krag-Jorgensen, we can just basically throw rounds in there any old way. Let's see, it holds 2, 3, 4, and then we can take a 5th round and stick it in there. Notice I'm not even paying attention to the rims. Close it, and now you'll see the rounds coming around to the side over there. Now I currently have the gun in its default position, which is the magazine cutoff. You'll notice it's not picking up one of those live rounds. That's because military doctrine of the era was that you would hold the rounds in the magazine in reserve, and you would single load and fire until you were given the order to feed from the magazine, or rapid fire. It was an effort to conserve ammunition. It was a popular thing to do around the turn of the century. You'll find many rifles have that, including some Mauser actions have the magazine cut off. So when I say Mauser actions, I'm talking about guns like the 1903 Springfield. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of shooting with this guy. I'm going to put my ears on, and I'm going to talk about some of the other features as well. So before we start shooting, this front sight, this is kind of a unique sight. I believe this is a first generation Dixon sight. The guys over at CNR Arsenal, or even the guys over at Forgotten Weapons, can give you more information about the history and the evolution of the rear sights of this particular 1898 rifle. But this, I believe, is a first generation Dixon sight. It has a V-notch cut here in the center, and then if you look at the sight from the front, you'll see there's some scallops. There's 3 scallops. It's supposed to have notches on either side and then a notch in the center. The notches on the side, which are pretty much worn off on this, and the V-notch in the center is very, very shallow and hard to see. It was designed so you could do windage holds at long shots. I think the guys over at CNR Arsenal said something incredible like 1,800 meters in a 20-mile-an-hour crosswind or something crazy like that. Pretty much not very practical. Now, you do have the ability, you'll notice that if you come in tight, you'll see little tiny hash marks. We have windage adjustment capability here with this knob. And then we have elevation adjustment by loosening this knob, no push buttons, loosening this knob and then pushing it up. And you can see this roller coaster rear blade. As you push this forward, it brings that rear sight up for further and further distances. So right now we have that rear sight set up for 100 yards. Now the magazine cutoff switch is right here, and this is in the cutoff position. If you want to make it feed from the magazine, all you have to do is flip this up, and we'll do that here in a minute after I fire a few single shots. Back here you can see the sear, the striker. This is your striker right here. And that's where your trigger engages. And then as I push the bolt home, the extractor's on the top and the ejector is right here in the bottom. I'm touching it with my index finger. As the bolt comes back, watch how that pops up. See how that pops up? So to properly eject a round from this, a spent casing from this, you'll want to pull the bolt sharply to the rear, because that's going to give you the pressure that you need to flick that out, because it's not spring operated. It's operated by when the bolt passes over it, it pushes back, causes it to seesaw, and that is what kicks your spent case out. Now you can take it apart also by, you'll see there's this little detent that locks here on the receiver, locking the bolt to the rear a little bit, but not very much. You can pop this extractor off and rotate it over and take the bolt out. It's not the easiest thing to do, and I'll give it a try here a little later this afternoon. It's really hard on the fingers. Sometimes you can use a screwdriver, but I don't like doing it because I don't want to screw up my mechanism. All right, so when you close the bolt, these are again known for the very smooth bolt actions. Nice and smooth, silky smooth, and this is your cock or striker. Now I do not have a round in the chamber, but what I can do is it's knurled here on the edges. I can hold this and ease that striker forward on an empty chamber, and the gun's decocked. This is your safety. It's a very similar safety to what you would find on a Mauser. So let's go to the cocked position. Now watch what happens when I flip it over. It's currently in the fire position. If you watch this, it'll slightly move to the rear as I rotate this over. See how it's barely moving it to the rear there? What that's doing is pulling the striker away from the trigger sear, so now the trigger is no longer able to release the striker. Flip it back over here, you'll see this slightly move forward, and now the striker has dropped onto the trigger sear and the gun's ready to fire. That's pretty much it. Have a simple fixed blade up front. You know, we have just a straight stock back here, and it's a very comfortable cartridge to shoot. Let's go ahead and single load one round, and then we'll flip the switch and we'll go to, we'll single load a few rounds, and then we'll flip the switch and go to magazine feed. So you would just throw a round in and close the bolt, see how it automatically lines that round up. And we have a target downrange, about 100 yards. So now notice, see how I have to pull that bolt sharply to the rear, but it still didn't pick up a round from the magazine. I can throw another round in and ready to gun. These old sights are on. So now look what happens if I pull the bolt slowly to the rear. See, it just pops off. So what you need to do is sharply pull that bolt to the rear for it to properly eject that spent cartridge. All right, so pull the bolt sharply to the rear and it kicks it out. Now I'm going to flip this magazine shut off to the feed position. And now when I go to close that bolt, see how it picked up a round? Now I have 5 rounds in the magazine I can shoot. a little hard to get closed sometimes. Got one more in there. And she hits steel every single time. Now, what was kind of nice about this arrangement was that, and this is what the U.S. Army liked about it, at least initially, was the fact that while you were firing, you could actually top the gun off. So you just throw rounds in here. So just throw 3 rounds in. Close it. I just have 3 rounds in there. I'm going to turn the magazine on, and I can fire a round. But if I want to top the gun off real quick, I can still do that by throwing some more ammunition into the magazine in the heat of battle so that I can grab another round quickly. So that's how that mechanism works. It's pretty simple. I'm going to turn the magazine off now, even though the bolt's to the rear, and you'll notice it still won't pick up one of those rounds. It's a very simple mechanism, seems to be fairly robust, and yeah, it's just a fun little rifle to shoot overall. For a number of different reasons, the Krag-Jorgensen fell out of favor with the U.S. Army. The side loading feature that made it so unique and made the Army like it wound up being kind of a liability, because look what happens when I'm out in the field and I'm loading my rifle. Can you imagine if I'm doing this laying on the ground, being fired at, and trying to keep dirt out of the action of my gun? What I've done is just basically opened up the entire mechanism of my rifle to the elements around it. So it's not a great way to load a rifle if you're worried about field conditions and being the ultimate in reliability, which would be not to have crud getting directly into the action of your rifle. All right, like the K98 Mauser, it'll hit that last round and stop. You don't have that with the Krag-Jorgensen, so that last round, if you're not counting rounds, you won't know. But you can still go back to single feed anytime you need. But the thing is, guys, this rifle gave way to more robust designs like the Mauser, which is what our own 1903 Springfield was based on. Let's take a look at that one. As many of you guys already know, we've been demonetized by YouTube. What that means is even though you see ads running in front of our videos or ads next to our videos, that doesn't mean we're getting paid, because most of us are down 70% or more on our AdSense revenue. So we've turned to other sources to fund our ongoing operations to continue to bring you guys quality content. And we've chosen to go to Patreon, as many YouTubers have. Over on Patreon, we answer all of your questions once you become a member. And that includes Jason or myself, private messages, posts. You have a direct line of communications with us. But also on top of that, we've built for our squad leaders and above a special page or special access to Copper Custom's website where you can go and get discount deals all the time, 24/7, over on the Copper Custom website. But for our team leaders, which is the entry-level tier, for $1, you're even included in those special promotions. Every once in a while, we'll post a code so all of our Patreons can go over and pick up a special deal on an optic or something like that. But our friends over at Forged from Freedom, who make the Mac collection of t-shirts, which I'm wearing my iMac t-shirt today, these guys give away 5 free t-shirts to 5 lucky patrons every single month, and you can't win twice. You also get to pick whichever t-shirt that you want from the Mac collection, where there is a link down below to the Mac store. But also, our friends over at Freedom Munitions give away $300 in ammunition. So we pick 3 lucky winners to receive $100 gift certificates, which are redeemable at the Freedom Munitions store. So that's how we try to give something back to you guys for supporting us directly here on Patreon. So the 1898 Krag-Jorgensen rifle gave way to the 1903 Springfield, which really is a little more than a slightly modified Mauser action. It's kind of ironic that the Mauser went up against the Krag in the original military trials and the Krag won. It was designed in Norway, and the Norwegians adopted it, the United States adopted it, and I think Denmark adopted it, that being the Krag-Jorgensen rifle. So the US military very quickly decided it wanted something else, and this is that something else. And this rifle stuck around for a couple of different iterations. This is an original 1903 Springfield, so you notice it doesn't have the peep sight here in the rear. It has the old school sights here in the front. And it's 30-06, and so they changed the caliber. We stuck with 30 caliber projectile, but we changed the case and went to a rimless design. The nice thing about the Mauser is it can be loaded with stripper clips. I don't have any here with me, but the top loaders were deemed to be superior to the Krag side loading feature, at least by the US military. So we stuck with the 30 caliber projectile, went to a new case that was rimless, and we went to the Mauser action like most everybody else did just prior to hostilities during World War I. Now, we were licensing the technology from the Mauser company, but as soon as hostilities broke out and we were fighting with the Germans, I think we told them to go sit and spin on about 400 grand. So this is very similar in function. Now you'll notice I just fed from the magazine. I have a magazine on-off right here. It's clearly marked, however, unlike the Krag-Jorgensen, this one is clearly marked on and off. So this rifle does the same thing in essence that the Krag did, which means you can fire rounds out of the gun, but right now it's not going to feed from its magazine because I have the magazine shut off in place. So I can single load, just like with the Krag. But then if I need the magazine or I'm given the order, I flip the magazine to on, and now it feeds from its magazine. Ugh. I always struggle with these bolts, and you'll notice that unlike the Krag, with the magazine in the on position from the feed, it tells you the gun's empty by locking open. Of course, that feature won't be there if you have the magazine turned off. You're shooting single shot anyway. So anyway, you'll notice the safeties are similar. We have the cocking mechanism here, which is similar. So really wasn't that much of a hard transition for the troops anyway to go from the Krag to the 1903 Springfield. Let me show you guys how to field strip the Krag-Jorgensen rifle here. First of all, we're going to make sure the weapon's empty, and I've checked the magazine and the chamber. Now you'll see this little detent right here. This is your extractor. I'm going to pull up on it. There's a hinge point right here. This extractor is flexible, and I'll see if I can do it in such a way that you guys can see what I'm doing. All I have to do is lift it up and twist it this way and get it past this receiver, and see how the bolt just frees up. It looks kind of awkward, and this stays attached. And now you just pull the bolt to the rear. You can see the locking lug right here. Rotate it up so the locking lug clears, and now you've taken your bolt out of your Krag-Jorgensen. And now you can clean it from the breech side so you don't damage the crown on the rifle. You can see the trigger sear right here that engages with the sear surface here on the striker. Putting it back together is actually pretty simple. Just hold this out of the way, make sure your locking lug is up, and as the locking lug goes forward, rotate this down and push down. It kind of locks itself into place. It's actually a lot easier than it looks. It goes together much more easily than it comes apart as well. So that's it. That's how you would field strip the rifle for field maintenance.
All right, I'm gonna give this thing a try. This is my first time messing with one of these. Oh, pick the right pocket here. And I got it stuck. There we go. Really doesn't look like it's going to take that biff, but we're closed. All right, I got the magazine feed off. Yep, nothing loading there. Get this thing to go. There we are. All right, see if I can hit anything with it. Turn the magazine feed option on here. Yeah, one more. That's pretty cool to shoot a piece of history.
I hope you guys enjoyed coming out to the range with us this afternoon, do a little bit of shooting with the Krag-Jorgensen rifle and 3040 Krag. Now guys, if you want to learn more about the history of this gun, I'm a horrible historian. I'm a gun collector and a trigger puller. I know just enough to be dangerous about most of these guns. If you want a true history lesson on guns like this, there's two channels out there I highly recommend. One of them is Forgotten Weapons. They know everything about every gun that's ever been made. I can't believe that Ian just can, off the top of his head, recite such amazing information, history about various different firearms. But there's another channel out there that's capable of doing the same thing, and they do really cool animations to support their videos, and that's CNR Arsenal, another outstanding YouTuber that does great history videos on milsurp rifles like this Krag-Jorgensen. All right, guys, we're just gonna fire off the last 3 rounds here and head out, get ready to go on a deer hunt next week. Stick around for that. Watch us on Instagram if you don't already, because we'll be posting pictures over there as we're out down in Texas stalking a deer. All right, let's fire off these last 3 rounds here. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all those years of support. We'll talk to you soon.